It was early Thanksgiving morning, and 911 had received a call.
Miami Police 5 Jones, do you have an emergency?
Yeah, hi.
What is the emergency?
Domestic violence at the Opera Tower.
Okay, can you be more specific?
Yeah,
What
well,
is the emergency?
I see the man beating on a woman.
Is he armed with a weapon?
He's not armed with a weapon, but she's
Does she
bleeding.
need
She needs a cops to come down here.
Okay,
so
the police are
her.
coming. The police are coming.
There I was, at my building's lobby with two strangers, an ambulance, paramedics, being questioned by police, freezing to death, shivering, and in pain. That night when I went up to my apartment, there was a dancer staying at my place, Jennifer. She healed my wounds a little, and she was a great witness to that and many other crimes, but a few hours later she was leaving to Puerto Rico, and I was left alone. I had to cover the mirrors. I didn't even want to see myself. I didn't know how to tell my family in Venezuela. I was ashamed. Thanksgiving night came, and while everyone was celebrating and giving thanks, I was totally lost in fear. That night, I slept with a knife next to my bed because I knew he may come back. I wondered, how many keys to my apartment will he have? How many more will he have stolen? Worst of all, my building was making the process of changing my lock very slow and complicated. The next few days, I had severe pain in my face and head. I held on for 2 days. On the third day, I couldn't stand the pain anymore and I was getting very dizzy. I was hospitalized. A ringing in my ears accompanied me for many days. I had difficulty breathing, and sometimes I felt dizzy. At that moment, I felt more alone than ever. In another country, scared to death, struggling to sleep. The night of the crime, I sent his mother a photo of the police report and photo of me. I wanted her to see how her son had disfigured me. I wanted her to know that I was willing to seek justice. So I mentioned to her that he would regret having done this harm to me, thinking that was the best lesson. The truth was that I was very naive. They don't regret anything, but that is something I understand today. Her response was,
Yo sé que pasó lo que pasó entre ustedes, eso a mí no me interesa. No presiones cargo contra Sherhan, por favor. No le jodas la vida. Yo sé que te jodió la vida a ti, pero yo te aseguro que no va a volver a joderte más nada.
She also offered me money to drop the charges. There was zero empathy on her part. There was never a, how do you feel? Do you need to go to a hospital? Nothing. To my rescue came Fabiola, a wonderful maracucha. She was a stranger who became my big sister. A friend of a friend told her my story, and there she was. She took me out of my house. She knew I wasn't safe there. What a spectacular woman. Without even knowing me, she helped me a lot. And Lorraine, my old friend, was also there, firm, at the foot of the canyon. In the coming week, I succeeded in introducing a restraining order. I was determined to continue with the case. The Miami-Dade police asked me to contact them as soon as I knew of his whereabouts in order to proceed with his arrest, since he lived in another Florida county, and for that reason they couldn't arrest him at his address at his home due to a matter of jurisdiction. I decided to leave my apartment for a while because I didn't feel safe at all. While I was in hiding, he was partying with zero remorse and talking about God on social media. It is somewhat ironic to see how people who act like this in an abusive, violent, and humiliating way talk and use the name of God and the Bible to show another mask to society. There was a show coming up that I had with Maluma. It was on December 5th, 2015, at the Marlins Stadium. He already had a restraining order and a case of violence. He couldn't and shouldn't come near me. Meanwhile, I was in hospitals injecting steroids and using a lot of ice to lessen the disfigurement I had on my forehead. I also had extensive difficulty breathing. There are still after effects of that. Unfortunately, he was also part of Maluma's staff of dancers, so I had to inform the choreographer what happened and let him know that I was afraid to work with him and that there was already a restraining order and a domestic violence case, and I didn't want him around for my safety and my emotional health. The choreographer, Jeremy, was very indignant about the situation and made the decision to take him out. But it is important for you to know that not everyone in the industry acted this way. On the contrary, the majority supported him. I will elaborate on this later. The day of the show arrived and I was informed that he was also there to perform with Ricky Martin. He, even though he knew we couldn't be in the same place, there were already a domestic violence case, he decided to go and violate the restriction law. I was terrified, so I hid away from the staff where he couldn't find me. Then I called the police and did exactly what they asked me to do. With the arrival of the police at the site of the event, rumors began to grow about the situation. People began to realize that something much more serious was going on. He had already prepared the ground, starting to change the real story to play the victim in front of the people. The police even looked for him, I think even in the dressing room. And guess what? He got away from the police. He ran away like a criminal does. At that time, many people in the dance community accused me of being dramatic and showgirl. Today, I ask myself, if he had taken my life, would they call me the same? Or why do they mostly wait until the woman is killed to take action or speak out? Or if it was a sister or a cousin who was the abused and the perpetrator is illegally nearby, would they react like that? These are questions in my mind. Little by little, the clock was ticking for what would be the great smear campaign. Psychologists talk a lot about this stage. There was a strong smear campaign waiting for me in which he began to change the real story. He started lying and saying in the dance community that I was a crazy woman. No longer was his ex the crazy one. Now the title had been inherited by me. The coward claimed that I had edited a photograph in Photoshop to make people believe that he had hit me. He claimed it was all a sham of mine and that I had filed a restraining order to hurt him. Again, a narcissistic trait, the role of victimhood. It is very curious to see how a narcissist can project his own personality disorders on other people. For example, he posted in a Facebook post, "America, where anyone can sue even for their own mental problems." Sadly, people were already beginning to believe him, and a lie told many times can become a false truth. And that was just what was happening. In telling this story, I must admit that I received very little support from the industry. I began to feel more alone, of course. Dr. Iñaki and Sandra L. Brown state that for narcissistic psychopaths, there is no true emotional empathy, only cognitive empathy, because their brain doesn't work the same way due to their personality disorders. It is a deformity in the amygdala of their brain, and that is why they are not afraid to get into trouble, either lying to justice or evading it. You will see this little by little during the legal battles. At that time, many things started happening. Rumors, stories, assumptions, and the arrival of what specialists call the flying monkeys. In psychology and the study of this pathology, flying monkeys are referred to as the narcissist's friends. That is, the tools that the narcissist has to carry out his campaign of defamation and brutal destruction of the reputation of his target, his victim. In this case, it was me. At that moment, with a case of violence on my shoulders, plus hundreds of stories and hypotheses that were circulating and gaining traction in the industry, I had to reflect and seriously question whether remaining silent was ideal, because his lies were slowly becoming a false truth. I realized that my silence was going to be the grave of my dignity. I was going to lose my jobs because the artists I worked for, as well as the choreographers and talent agency directors, were beginning to believe those lies that covered up his criminal acts. So, I decided to publicly denounce it. My hope was that my industry, my work environment, and my employers would do what they could to safeguard the safety of a talent that was victim of a crime. I expected them to do the right thing and speak out against violence. To my surprise, it was quite the opposite. If you have gone through unfair, toxic, and abusive circumstances, I would like to help you recognize, validate, and release those experiences and emotions. Let's take steps full of self-love, courage, and vulnerability, because you deserve it. Go to the link in the description, magalife.com/liberation, and get your masterclass and workbook. It's free. With love, Magdiel.